In our interconnected world, when powerful countries clash, the consequences ripple across continents. Conflict in one region can trigger economic turmoil, disrupt supply chains, and create instability far beyond the borders of those directly involved. Everyday people feel the impact, through rising prices, uncertainty, and even threats to their safety. The stakes are higher than ever, and the need for dialogue is urgent. That's why presidents and prime ministers travel across the globe for face-to-face summits. These gatherings aren't just about formalities. They're about talking directly, building trust, and working together to solve the world's toughest problems. In a world where misunderstandings can escalate quickly, personal meetings help leaders see each other as people, not just political opponents. These meetings are diplomacy in action. Behind closed doors, leaders and their teams negotiate, debate, and try to find solutions. The goal is to prevent small disagreements from spiraling into disaster and to keep lines of communication open even when tensions run high. The main goal? To find common ground on the world's most pressing issues: trade, security, climate change, and above all, peace. These topics affect billions of lives, and progress often depends on leaders' willingness to listen and compromise. In-person talks allow leaders to read each other's body language, build personal rapport, and develop a sense of trust that can't be achieved through phone calls or emails. These relationships can make all the difference during moments of crisis, when quick decisions and honest communication are essential. While summits rarely deliver instant solutions, they lay the groundwork for future agreements and help maintain global stability. The agreements signed, the statements made, and even the photos taken send signals to the world about the direction of international relations. The stakes are highest during major wars, like the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. This war has caused immense suffering, displaced millions, and sent shockwaves through the global economy. The world watches, hoping for a breakthrough that could ease the pain and restore stability. When US and Russian leaders meet, the world holds its breath. These encounters are more than symbolic. They're moments when the possibility of progress toward peace feels real, even if fragile. The recent summit between President Donald Trump and President Vladimir Putin, held in Anchorage, Alaska, was a test of diplomacy at a critical moment. The world's attention was fixed on the outcome, as both leaders faced pressure to find common ground and reduce tensions. Their urgent mission, to find a path to end the war in Ukraine. Every word, gesture, and decision carried enormous weight, with the potential to change the course of history. Around the globe, people watched anxiously, some hopeful, others skeptical, as the future of millions hung in the balance. The outcome of these talks would shape not just Ukraine, but the entire world order. This meeting was a defining moment for international diplomacy, a reminder that, even in the darkest times, dialogue remains our best hope for peace. Before the summit, President Trump set sky-high expectations, making it clear to both his supporters and critics that he was aiming for nothing less than a diplomatic breakthrough. He branded himself as the only leader capable of ending the Ukraine war, insisting that his negotiating skills and bold personality set him apart from previous presidents. Trump promised a historic peace deal, touting his unique relationship with Vladimir Putin and his tough, no-nonsense approach to international diplomacy. He claimed that only he could bring both sides to the table and force a resolution. He declared he'd walk out if Putin wasn't serious, projecting strength and raising the stakes even higher. Trump wanted the world to see him as a leader who wouldn't back down or settle for half measures. In a dramatic twist, he floated the idea of a trilateral meeting with Ukraine's President Zelenskyy, positioning himself as a mediator who could bridge the gap between two bitter adversaries. Trump vowed to secure a quick ceasefire, framing the summit as a decisive turning point not just for Ukraine and Russia, but for his own legacy as well. He promised results where others had failed. This bold, high-stakes strategy dominated headlines around the world, making the outcome of the summit deeply personal for Trump. Every move was scrutinized, every word analyzed. If he succeeded, it would be a major foreign policy win and a defining moment of his presidency. If not, critics and political opponents would pounce, eager to highlight any misstep or failure. As Air Force One touched down in Alaska, anticipation was at a fever pitch. The world waited to see if Trump's confidence and bravado would deliver real results, or if his promises would collide with the harsh realities of war and diplomacy. The pressure was on, and the stakes had never been higher. Despite his tough talk on the world stage, Trump greeted Putin with a grand, carefully staged welcome in Alaska, a moment that blended political theater with real diplomatic stakes. The arrival was meticulously choreographed, with every detail designed to send a message not just to Russia, but to the watching world. The air was thick with anticipation as the two leaders met, their handshake signaling the start of a historic encounter. Meeting him on the tarmac, Trump set a tone of respect and showmanship, complete with a dramatic military flyover featuring a B-2 bomber and F-35 jets. The roar of engines overhead was impossible to ignore, a powerful display meant to impress and perhaps intimidate, underscoring America's military might. The spectacle was both a gesture of hospitality and a subtle reminder of American power. The parade of flags, the disciplined military escort, and the thunderous flyover all worked together to create an atmosphere of grandeur and authority. Putin rode with Trump in the presidential limousine, signaling personal diplomacy. This rare gesture suggested a willingness to engage directly, away from the public eye, and hinted at the possibility of candid conversation between the two leaders. The summit's backdrop, "Pursuing Peace" in bold letters, projected hope, even as tensions simmered beneath the surface. The message was clear. Despite differences, both sides were willing to talk, at least for now. Small details like Russia's foreign minister wearing a CCP shirt added layers of symbolism and intrigue. Every gesture, every piece of clothing seemed to carry a message, reminders of history, pride, and unresolved tensions. For Trump, the ceremony was about commanding respect and shaping the narrative. He wanted to be seen as a strong leader, orchestrating events on his own terms and making sure the world took notice. For Putin, it was a rare moment of equal footing on U.S. soil, a political win back home. Standing alongside Trump, he projected confidence, knowing that this meeting would be closely watched by both allies and rivals. The world's cameras captured every move, amplifying the stakes. Every handshake, every glance, every word exchanged was broadcast globally, turning the meeting into a spectacle of international importance. The stage was set for high-stakes negotiations, with the world waiting to see what would unfold behind closed doors in Alaska. The summit's core focus was the war in Ukraine, a conflict that had devastated millions and destabilized Europe. Trump aimed to broker a ceasefire, motivated by both humanitarian concerns and U.S. economic interests in Ukraine. Putin, however, insisted any deal must address Russia's security demands, especially regarding NATO. The two leaders faced a fundamental impasse. Russia wanted guarantees and concessions. Ukraine and its allies refused to trade land for peace. Trump was caught between Russia's demands and Ukraine's non-negotiable sovereignty. The talks became a clash of worldviews, with no easy compromise in sight. Both sides knew the world was watching, expecting real progress. The fate of Ukraine and the credibility of U.S. diplomacy hung in the balance. The summit was less about instant solutions and more about testing the limits of negotiation. The stakes could not have been higher. Trump and Putin met for 3 hours behind closed doors, joined only by top aides and translators. The main topic: conditions for a ceasefire in Ukraine. Trump pushed for an immediate halt to fighting. Putin demanded broader security guarantees. The gap between their positions dominated the talks, with little sign of compromise. Broader issues, NATO, sanctions, and global security, were also on the table. Notably, Trump's idea of including Ukraine's President Zelenskyy never materialized. The talks remained strictly U.S.-Russia. Many worried Ukraine's fate was being decided without its voice. The meeting ended without a breakthrough, and the leaders emerged to face the press, still divided. The world was left waiting for real progress. The summit ended with no deal, no ceasefire, no peace agreement. Trump admitted, "We didn't get there," acknowledging the failure to end the war. Both sides spun the talks as productive, keeping hope alive for future negotiations. For Ukraine and its allies, the lack of a rushed deal was a relief, no pressure to accept unfavorable terms. The meeting re-established high-level U.S.-Russia contact, but the core conflict remained unresolved. Diplomacy is often about managing expectations, and this summit was no exception. The leaders clarified their positions, but the deep divisions persisted. The process continues, but peace remains elusive. The world must wait for the next chapter. After the summit, Trump and Putin held separate press conferences, each spinning the outcome for their audiences. Trump struck an optimistic tone, no deal until there's a deal, promising to brief Ukraine and NATO and stressing that any agreement was ultimately up to them. He positioned himself as a mediator, not a dictator. Putin echoed cautious optimism but repeated Russia's firm conditions, security guarantees and addressing NATO concerns. He warned Kiev and the West not to torpedo progress, shifting blame for any failure. The leaders' statements revealed the gulf between their positions. Trump focused on future possibilities, Putin on Russia's security. Both used positive language, but the divide was clear. The summit ended with more questions than answers. As the summit closed, Putin invited Trump to Moscow, a major diplomatic gesture. Trump's response was non-committal, keeping his options open and avoiding controversy. No concrete plans were made for a trilateral meeting with Ukraine's Zelenskyy, signaling that real progress was still distant. Without a basic ceasefire or agreement on principles, a broader summit seemed premature. The future of negotiations remains uncertain, hinging on developments in Ukraine and further diplomatic talks. Trump's promised calls to allies will shape the next steps. The door to more summits is open, but the path to peace is still blocked. The world waits to see if dialogue can move beyond symbolism. The Trump-Putin summit was dramatic but inconclusive. Two powerful leaders talked peace but found no solution. The meeting proved that dialogue is possible, even in times of war, but also highlighted the complexity of the Ukraine conflict. No breakthrough means Ukraine remains in danger, and the war continues. For Europe and the world, the summit was a reminder of U.S.-Russia power dynamics and the risks of hasty deals. Putin gained prestige. Ukraine avoided a bad agreement. Critics argued Putin won by gaining time and legitimacy. The next steps depend on Trump's talks with allies and Ukraine. The world watches, hoping for de-escalation, but knowing peace is still far off. Personal diplomacy can open doors, but can't solve deep-rooted conflicts overnight. The search for peace in Ukraine continues, slow, difficult, and uncertain.